I'm calling it out for what it is. It's highly unprofessional. It's ridiculous. And those companies are hurting themselves because they're putting out all this negative goodwill. Here is a HR employee, like a recruiter, and they're representing their organization and they are ghosting people. They are putting all kinds of bad stuff out there, turning people off, where you have to come and you feel this tall because you're between jobs and you're like essentially on your knees begging for a job. And these people, not only do they do things like ghosting you, they are disrespectful and rude to you in other ways too. And on top of that, they can be very incompetent. That's been my experience being on the receiving end of this as a candidate many years ago. That was my consistent experience. Disrespect and incompetence. That's what I was met with almost all the recruiters I dealt with. Now, later on in my career, I met some executive recruiters and I see that there's actually some very talented people in there that are actually doing things right. They're trying to behave in a very professional way, blah, blah, blah. But there are still a hell of a lot of bad ones. And that's what a lot of people encounter. And it surprises me that those organizations are allowing these employees of theirs to go and put out such negative goodwill, to the public, because candidates are part of the public, right? They're hurting themselves. And I've heard of stories where candidates, have been disrespected or they had a very unpleasant experience with a recruiter. And, it's inspired them to A, never work for that organization, B, go work for their competitor and actively work against them because they got a chip on their shoulder about some jackass that they had to deal with years earlier, You know what I mean? I've encountered people like that have told me all about it and they've told me what they've done. And these people end up being managers, 20 years later and stuff, and they still got a chip on their shoulder, especially if that bad employer that had the bad recruiter, they have like issues with their culture. They're very arrogant as a group, or they're, very, like there's problems with their culture.